It's Throwback Thursday, and this is a real throwback, the old classic Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there lived a little girl who always wore a bright red cape with a hood. She was known as Little Red Riding Hood. She lived with her mother in a cottage near the woods, and on the other side of the woods lived her grandmother. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother said, "Grandmother is not feeling well, so I have baked some bread for you to take to her. Just remember, be careful to stay on the path. You know you must never go into the woods." Little Red Riding Hood set off happily, and at first she was very careful. But soon she noticed some lovely flowers growing nearby, and she stepped from the path to pick them for her grandmother. She gathered more and more flowers, and before she knew it, she had wandered deep into the woods. She could not see the path at all. Just then, a wolf stepped out from behind a tree. "Good day, my dear," he said. "And where are you going?" "I'm going to visit my sick grandmother on the other side of the woods," replied Little Red Riding Hood. "I stopped to pick these flowers for her, and now I'm lost." "Let me show you the way," said the wolf. "Oh, thank you," said Little Red Riding Hood, and she followed the wolf back to the path. But the wolf had a wicked plan. While Little Red Riding Hood walked along the path, he ran through the woods so that he would get to grandmother's first. The wolf knocked on the door. "Who is it?" called grandmother. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," answered the wolf in a little voice. "I've come to visit you." "How sweet of you," grandmother replied. "Please come in, my dear." The wolf opened the door and pounced. He grabbed grandmother and locked her in the closet. At that moment, he heard Little Red Riding Hood outside. Wrapping a scarf around his head, he jumped into bed and pulled the covers right up to his whiskery chin. Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door. "Grandmother," she called, "it's me, Little Red Riding Hood. I've come to visit you." "How sweet of you," the wolf replied in a voice like grandmother's. "Please come in, my dear." Little Red Riding Hood opened the door and stepped inside. "Hello, my dear child," said the wolf. "Come and sit by my bed." But as Little Red Riding Hood came closer, she began to stare. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have." "All the better to hear you with, my dear," replied the wolf. "Oh, grandmother, what big eyes you have." "All the better to see you with, my dear." Then Little Red Riding Hood looked even more closely. "But, grandmother, what big teeth you have." "All the better to eat you with, my dear," said the wolf, and he leaped out of bed to grab her. "Help! Help!" cried Little Red Riding Hood as she ran out of the cottage with the wolf close behind her. A woodcutter heard her cries and ran toward the cottage. The wolf stopped, looked at the woodcutter, and then fled into the woods. Together, Little Red Riding Hood and the woodcutter found grandmother and set her free. From that day on, Grandmother was much more careful about who she invited in, and you can be sure that Little Red Riding Hood always did stay on the path. And Little Red's Limerick. There once was a well-behaved daughter who did what her wise mother taught her. But one sunny day she wandered away, and a big hungry wolf almost caught her.